Welcome to APH's Access Academy. Well, what happens after the meeting ends and families have all left and everybody's wondering, where do we go next? If you have ever been in that situation, then this webinar is especially for you. Welcome to From Diagnosis to Employment, supporting learners who are blind or deafblind across the lifespan. Together, we will explore practical, accessible tools that support learners who are blind or deafblind across the full lifespan. So that's from diagnosis and early intervention to transition, employment, even adult independence. Leanne, thank you for joining us today and being here to share with us about this valuable topic.
Well, thank you so much. And thank all of you for being here as well. Your time is valuable. I will say today is not a website tour. Instead, we're going to talk about a challenge we all face, helping families, students, and adults know what to do next. Throughout the lifespan, from diagnosis to employment, people encounter important decisions. What services do we need? How do I support literacy for my child? What comes after high school, and how do I prepare for employment? Well, the Connect Center is evolving to help answer those questions. Our focus today is practical. What decisions are people trying to make, and how can we reduce information overload? How can we help you find the right tools to support your work without adding to your workload? You're already doing really hard work. We want to talk about the infrastructure that helps people move from just getting information to action. So our learning objectives today: identify common points of breakdown across the lifespan for learners who are blind or deafblind, including early intervention, school transitions, and movement into adult services and employment. To explain how Connect Center resources, including Family Connect, Braille Bug, Vision Aware, and Career Connect support families and learners and adults at different stages of life. Analyze how these tools align with the IFSP, IEP, or pre-ETS, as well as transition planning goals in order to reinforce instruction and improve continuity of support. And apply a practical decision-making framework to select the most useful resource for family support, early literacy engagement, adult adjustment, or transition skill development in their own setting. Amy introduced me. I am Dr. Leanne Grillot, the Senior Director of Outreach Services at the American Printing House for the Blind. And I also happen to be an adjunct professor at Florida State University. So here's what we'll do together. We're going to identify where gaps commonly occur across the lifespan, and then look at those curated tools that could reinforce your instruction and design where these resources align with IEPs, IFSPs, and transition goals, as well as independent living goals. And then I want to make sure that we leave time for questions as well as collaboration. And I'll try to use some of the polls throughout so we can tailor this to who is here with us today. You've given us a smattering. So what I'd like to know is, who do you primarily serve? Now, some of you, you're going to want to select every button, and I get that. But think about the caseload you hold right now. Who are you currently serving most? Is it early childhood, K-8, transition age, adults, maybe deaf blind across the ages, or maybe you're university teacher prep. You're teaching adults to be instructors of some sort. As the responses come in, these are going to help me understand who's here. Now, one of the ongoing challenges in our field is that we often work in segments, that early childhood or school age or transition or adult. But we know our families and individuals experience this as one continuous journey. I'll try to reference examples most relevant to where you are working. And right now, as it's coming in, we are like neck and neck for K-8, transition, and adults. Right now, it's about neck and neck. So we have most of us in that probably large bucket. But the Connect Center offers support for all of these areas. I do understand some of you might work with many more than just one of these, and it's really hard to make it. I had to have something to give us a starting point. Okay, Amy, you can end that poll and we'll just keep on going. So, regardless of age group, we share some common realities. We know that families are overwhelmed. You professionals are stretched thin. Information you find online is inconsistent, can be outdated. We know transition planning is often strong on paper, but can be really difficult in practice. Our deafblind families, especially, face isolation, and resources can be scarce in some areas. It isn't about the lack of commitment. We're all committed. It's kind of about that fragmentation. So the challenge today is not the lack of information. Families can find thousands of articles and videos and opinions online. The challenge really is helping people find the right information at the moment they need to make a decision. That is increasingly the problem we are trying to solve. So I want to focus on one specific moment. The meeting ends, the IEP closes, or the IFSP is signed, or the transition goals are written, and then families go home. The moment after the meeting is, where do they go next? What reinforces the conversation that was just had? What or who supports the parent at 10 p.m. because they finally put someone to bed and they could finally think about it? What supports the student, maybe, who needs repetition? How many of you have had a parent email you at night after a meeting, whatever level it was, because they finally had time to process what was discussed? Put a yes, a Y, or an N in the chat. How many of you had a parent email you at night after that meeting because they finally could process that information? I'm seeing a few yeses there. What kind of questions do you get? What are questions that are asked at that 10 p.m.? You can go ahead and type them if you want. When parents finally get time to process that information and think about it, those are sometimes when we get some of those most "what do I do now" pieces. So some of the questions: is the interpreter booked? What will this actually look like for my kiddo? Did I understand that correctly? Wait, you're no longer going to be the case manager. One of the things that you're going to see is that the space between those meetings is where this fragmentation often shows. And so, what we want to think about is, what content can we make sure is available for you to give your parents and individuals? But when doing so, we want to make sure that the content we are creating for the Connect Center is answering or helping a person make a decision that they're trying to make or understand at that moment. So that's one of the things that we're thinking about here. The continuum, the lifespan continuum, we all recognize isn't theoretical. It really is this lived experience. We know that our students could be diagnosed at 6 months old, and then they become this student kind of navigating literacy and the world of a learner. And then they move into that young adulthood, planning what they're going to do and what they're going to be. Moves on to that adult managing their independence, and their needs evolve. But the journey really is this connected tissue. And the challenge is that our systems often are not this connected flow of support. Breakdown often occurs at transition points, that diagnosis and moving to early intervention services. When a student moves from elementary to middle school, or high school to adult services. When they move from school to workforce systems, or vision loss later in life. Often late onset has no clear referral path. Professionals do their best to hand off. I know you try. I know you know when your students are moving from one system to another. But our families don't always experience it as seamlessly as we might hope. We understand the professional reality. You have limited time and expanding needs. There is the expectation that you are teaching specialized skills, that you're supporting families and coordinating with agencies. You're working on addressing the social emotional needs, sometimes of more than the individual with sight difference, but their families and other supportive people around them. You are supporting the preparation for employment. And of course, you're documenting everything with lots and lots of paperwork. And you do it with limited time. So the question becomes, how do we reinforce learning and provide reliable guidance without adding to your workload? Our hope is that this is where Connect Center fits. Connect Center was originally built on a collection of trusted resources across the lifespan. Today, we're going to be evolving beyond that. Our goal is not simply to provide information. Our goal is to help people identify their next step. Think of Connect Center as a decision support ecosystem. When someone is navigating a new diagnosis or supporting a student or planning for employment, maybe they're just adjusting to vision loss for the first time, or they're preparing for greater independence for themselves. We want to connect them with the right guidance at the right moment. So the websites, the articles, videos, and tools are important, but the real goal is helping people move forward with confidence. Now, to keep this structured, we have organized the work across kind of three pillars aligned with that lifespan continuum. Pillar one is that families and early childhood support. The second pillar is adjustment, independence. And then the third is transition and employment. We're going to walk through each of these, focusing on how it supports your work, where it aligns maybe with educational goals, and then how it can be used practically. So let's begin with families. Early diagnosis, whether visual impairment, deafblindness, it often brings medical complexity, emotional processing, system navigation, education unfamiliarity. Tr- Families are trying to understand terminology, services, and also long-term implications, and often all at once. Professionals play a critical role in that space. And while we didn't have what looked like many people that identified early childhood, I have a feeling more of you might have one or two of those smattered in some of your other groups. We know that support cannot happen only inside the scheduled meetings and scheduled service times. And this is where structured, reliable reinforcement becomes important. So, question for you. Where do families feel most overwhelmed? Is it immediately after diagnosis? Is it during their IFSP development? Is it at their first IEP? Maybe it's during school transitions. Or is it when they're thinking about long-term outcomes? What do you think? Where do families feel most overwhelmed? As responses come in, this helps us recognize patterns, even if we work in different settings. The emotional arc for families often follows similar stress points. We have a high component right now on when thinking about long-term outcomes, with neck and neck tied for second place between immediately after diagnosis and during school transitions. Notice how many stress points occur at those transitions. That pattern will show up again and again across the lifespan. Thanks, Amy. You can turn that one down. So Family Connect can reinforce some of these pieces. I want to be clear, it is not meant to be a replacement for professional guidance. It functions as a reinforcement tool, a between meeting reference, and it is curated as a starting point for families. It does help reduce random internet searching, but I personally wouldn't send a family to browse Family Connect. I would send them here because it addresses a question that I had just started working with a parent to answer. See if I can share. So I have switched to one of the pages on Connect Center. It is modeling literacy for parents of children with blindness. And it helps our parents really talk about how teaching literacy is different for our students who are blind and goes into depth for that. This might be an article that I share with my parent for them to kind of take away after we've already started talking about some of the ideas of how to work with their own student who's learning how to read. Or maybe we were just talking about some independence. And so there's a article called 5 Tips for Increasing Independence. And it talks about simple things that we can do to give a student an opportunity for more independence. And it helps the parents hear it from someone other than us as the teacher. So it could be navigating eye conditions or navigating IEPs or IFSPs, or maybe it's home-based adaptions. These are just other ways that you can use Family Connect as a reinforcer to some of the things that you have been working on and explaining to your parents. Really, truly, the key isn't volume, it's clarity for them. One of the questions we hear most often is, where do I start? And we know that families and professionals are often overwhelmed because there's just too much information available. With us moving away from too much information and designing around common questions and decisions, some of the places to think about helping our people get started is actually a Get It Started booklets that we have put together. These help with our parents understanding a little bit more about our students, and it gives you an opportunity to send one resource instead of 20 and having them dig through all of it. Um, a practical approach could be sending them that Get It Started booklet, or maybe just one relevant article, or a follow-up for a skill. Let me give you a real world example. A parent learns their 18-month-old child has a significant visual impairment. They leave the appointment and immediately they begin searching online. Within minutes, they have conflicting medical information, social media opinions, outdated resources, and then some worst case scenarios. The old approach would be sending them everything. A better approach would be helping them answer the first decision. Maybe it's, what do I need to do this week? And that's the difference between giving information and providing guidance. Oops, I walked you through the scenario and I forgot to move the slide forward. Question: how many of you have worked with a family who is hesitant about Braille because maybe they viewed it as outdated, or maybe a sign of failure that print wasn't working? Just curious. One of the things that I've loved is the opportunity to show the family Braillebug. It introduces Braille through curiosity and play rather than fear or maybe obligation. And while we have Family Connect, which provides guidance and information, Braillebug serves a different function. It really is about engagement, especially around Braille awareness. an early literacy interest. It's child-facing and accessible. It's a way you could introduce Braille concepts in a playful way, support motivation, reinforce some early exposure, and help families normalize Braille as a part of literacy. It's not a structured Braille curriculum, and it's not a replacement for instruction. It's an engagement bridge. And it is also a great opportunity for introducing young peers about Braille for our young kindergarten, maybe through about fifth or sixth grade, a little bit more about Braille that their classmate is using. Has anyone recently used Braille Bug? Is this a familiar resource? So yes, it's familiar. No, it's not. Okay. So hopefully I've put a new resource on the table for you for you to be able to help exposure and help that fear turn into curiosity regarding Braille instruction. I do want to say that this is definitely reinforcement that we're talking about. With the Family Connect information, Braille Bug, it's not a replacement. And that's an important boundary. These tools are most effective when they reinforce what you're teaching. They extend the conversation that you were having. They support families who need repetition. They provide that reliable language families can revisit when they're ready to read it again. They are not meant to override professional judgment or replace any of your direct instruction or serve like this is a one size fits all solution. But when used intentionally, they can reduce information gaps and increase confidence, hopefully without really increasing anything on your workload. When families supported and literacy foundations strengthened, we actually can now move into the next pillar. This next pillar is that adjustment and independence. And I'm talking about adjustment and independence across the lifespan. So this applies to kind of two major contexts of individuals that you work with. One is a group of students who are developing independence skills. The other are adults adjusting to vision loss later in life. It can become even more complex for our deaf-blind individuals because of that communication access and mobility and social connection all intersecting. And we know that adjustment is not just skill acquisition, it's identity formation, it's confidence and belonging, and also dealing with those emotional concerns. So I got a question for you. What prompts adult referrals most often? Is it sudden vision loss, progressive vision changes, exit from school services, a family request for support, social isolation, independent living concerns? Adult referrals can be interesting. To whom? Who do we refer them to? Is it vision rehab? This question helps surface where adjustment pressure tends to show up. This one is more all over the place. We have answers on all of these. And it does tell us, for those of you that primarily work with children, this could be interesting. Many adults are entering the system. Sorry, many adults aren't entering the system because of an educational need. They're entering because they're actually facing a decision. Is it, can I work? Can I remain independent? Should I continue driving? How do I adapt to a changing vision? Those are decision points, and they are consistent nationally. Vision Aware was built to support those moments. Thanks, Amy. We really do have a smattering all over the place. Probably our highest was exit from school services, and independent living concerns. Vision Aware focuses on adult adjustment and independent living. And while you might first think that we are only talking about adults who are retired, we're not. We recognize that people can lose their vision at any age. And if a person is in their 20s can still find helpful information, and you can still support the 20-year-old just as much as you could support somebody who's in their 60s. It includes information on understanding eye conditions, learning daily living adaptations. It provides information about that emotional adjustment and support group navigation, as well as orientation toward vision rehabilitation services, something they might not have thought even existed. And it helps families. It can provide you reference resources to give to families, as well as help bridge when adult services feels unclear. It provides some structural language that adult can revisit privately, which is often important. Let me show you something quickly. So I navigated to one of the items on our um, uh, vision eye conditions. What are, whoa, and I clicked a button and then it disappeared on you. Hang on. Floaters, retinal tears, and retinal detachments. What are floaters? It goes into detail. It helps people understand more information, and it gives them an opportunity to go back and look again. But maybe you have a person who has the need to be able to better watch their health information. So another article is 5 accessible heart healthy devices for people who are blind or low vision, providing information about blood pressure monitors that are helpful or useful, a talking bath scale, as well as accessible medication management. Again, that independent living piece. Maybe you have a family who's really working on adjusting with someone who has lost their vision. So, an article about the emotional adjustment to declining vision might be very helpful for someone to read and to understand other people go through this. So, again, I am not trying to show you a website in particular. What I'm trying to do is show you the example of this is what I would send to someone. Now, once they've read that article, if they want to click around because they find that helpful, you know that they're getting information that has been vetted to make sure that we're providing correct and reliable information to individuals if they decide to go surfing the web a little bit further. Now, in school settings, we often address daily living skills kind of within structured instruction. But when services either taper or end, that learning we know doesn't stop. Vision Aware also provides practical adaptation examples, home modification considerations, reading strategies, environmental adjustments if you've lost more vision, as well as information about recreation and leisure. It reinforces independence in real world contexts. And this is particularly important for families supporting adult children after they exit school services. We're increasingly thinking about these resources not as content categories, but as support for real world decisions people face every day. How can I keep myself busy? How can I have something to do that I find pleasure in? We do know that isolation is one of the most frequently cited challenges among adults with vision loss. And even for our deaf-blind individuals, that isolation can be magnified by communication barriers and limited peer access. Vision Aware does contain information about support groups. It provides stories and perspectives of lived experiences. It has some adjustment guidance and some community connections to help people find others. Other deaf-blind resources that we would like to recommend are the Helen Keller National Center and the I Can't Connect. While it doesn't replace direct peer networks, it can help individuals recognize that they are not alone. For a moment, I want to speak here about our focuses on deaf-blind learners or adults. What often transfers well in Connect Center are the independent living strategies, the environmental adaptations, and the emotional adjustment themes. But there are other pieces that might require adaptation. So do keep that in consideration as you're reviewing information and sharing it with families and individuals. Those with deaf blindness that might require adaptation would be information on communication, the technology navigation, group participation models, as well as some of the peer connections models. This is where your professional judgment and specialized expertise really remain essential. The Connect Center resources can reinforce, but not replace, those adaptations that might need to be done for your individuals. Families supporting those deafblind learners or adults, we know often have this layered level of stress between their medical coordinations that they're doing, the communication systems that might be different, advocating for the individual, as well as long-term planning. And in those contexts, that structured, curated information really is important. So, any way that we might be able to help clarify service pathways, reinforce or reduce reinforce consistent terminology, reduce misinformation, support confidence during transitions. We are all ears to be able to hear from you if you find something that is missing and you want something to be available for you to be able to share. We would greatly appreciate hearing more from you at connectcenter@aph.org just to hear more about what you're looking for and what you need. With adjustment and independence addressed, let's move now to transition and employment. So this is pillar 3. For many professionals, this is where the pressure intensifies. And we saw a little bit of that in the polls. We as educators are expected to prepare our students for post-secondary education, competitive integrated employment, self-advocacy, workplace readiness, and we are often doing this with limited instructional time. So the question becomes, how do we move from that well-written transition goal, transition IEP, to meaningful preparation? This is one of the clearest examples of decision-based support available through Connect Center. Students aren't simply looking for employment information. They're really trying to answer questions like, should I go to college? Should I pursue a career training program? What job fits my skills? Or how do I prepare for work? Those are decisions. It's not just information needs. So, question. You possibly see these patterns. What do you see as the biggest transition challenge? Do you see the biggest transition challenge being student motivation, family expectations, employer engagement, instructional time to help our students, self-advocacy development, or that voc rehab coordination? This helps surface where friction is happening in the real settings. And again, you're likely going to see patterns. Many transition challenges are not about lack of effort. They're about structure and time. And this is where Career Connect, a part of Connect Center, can come into play. We see our highest as employer engagement with the next highest as family expectations. The others are around there, but the highest one was that employer engagement. Really interesting information, guys. Thank you. So let's talk about the transition gap that we have. IEPs often include strong transition language, like the student will explore career interests or develop self-advocacy skills. The student will prepare for competitive employment. But what really does that look like weekly? What structured pathway supports those goals between the annual meetings we have? Now we know that this is where instructional infrastructure matters. So a student says, I think I want to go to college. Well, the question isn't really college. The question is, am I ready? Supports will I need? What alternatives exist? How do I compare options? There's that decision-making process, and we know transition planning is full of these moments. Career Connect increasingly organizes support around employment decisions rather than just employment information. We know our students are asking, what career fits my interest? Or how do I gain experience doing that? Should I disclose my disability? How do I prepare for an interview? What, how do I succeed once I get the job? And we know our role in helping students is to move from that uncertainty to that action. So Career Connect functions as a structured resource hub focusing on employment readiness. It includes career exploration tools, employment process guidance, interview preparation, workplace maintenance strategies, and the Career Conversations video series talking to individuals who are blind or low vision who have jobs in all sorts of areas. So, as a professional, it can actually serve for you as supplemental curriculum support. It can provide you small group discussion material if you work with some groups. It could give you some between session assignments for your student, as well as reinforce pre-ETS topics. It's not a replacement curriculum. It's structured reinforcement. Let me give you a peek into what I'm talking about. So one of the pages is, how does a college degree impact your working future if you are blind or have low vision? It gives information and facts about why a college degree might be important for you or your student. It might help your family understand the information. Or maybe your student needs just a little bit more about what a cover letter is. Again, it allows you not to always have to put a book in front of them or you be the lecturer. You can give them information out here for them to be able to digest on their own. Or maybe they really want to do a career and they're saying, well, I want to do something with technology. Well, there are a variety of options. This is a person who was a blind mechanic who is now a technology instructor. And maybe that's something that would be interesting to your student to read more from an actual individual who's doing that job. Many of you indicated that working with employers is a challenge. And while I didn't have that link for that page up right away, we also have a section for employers who are interested in employing an individual who is blind or low vision. That might be a resource that you can share with your either with your student who's working on getting a job, or if you are coaching or assisting with employers, you can provide them that information and they can hear what a great thing it is to be able to employ someone who is blind or low vision and how this is just hiring somebody else who does it a different way. In addition to Career Connect, we do have the Job Seekers Toolkit. This is currently an online program that provides a sequenced pathway across 5 core areas: self-awareness, career exploration, employment process, interviewing, and maintaining employment. And this was built in this sequence because we recognize that students have to go through this sequence. It mirrors how readiness actually develops from that identity to execution. This is another option available to you to use with your individuals. That alignment with pre-ETS and IEP transition planning is critical. We understand that. The Job Seekers Toolkit supports pre-ETS areas such as job exploration counseling, workplace readiness training, self-advocacy instruction, and it also aligns naturally with IEP transition goals related to measuring post-secondary employment goals, self-determination, and independent living preparation. And when it's used intentionally, it strengthens your documentation as well as that instructional continuity. I'm curious, has anyone here heard about the Job Seekers Toolkit? Why in the chat or N in the chat? Okay, yet another tool in your tool belt. So, building self-determined and self-advocacy. One of the most persistent transition gaps is self-advocacy. Students know how to complete assignments, but struggle to disclose their disability appropriately or request accommodations, explain their strengths confidently, navigate workplace communication. Structured reflection activities in the toolkit support those skills. They provide language students can practice before the high stakes situation when they're in their first job or working on their second or third. In many regions, access to diverse workplace experiences is limited. Students may only see careers within a narrow geographic or economic context, while Career Connect allows career exploration without geographic limitations. It expands exposure by highlighting varied career paths, featuring professionals who are blind, and offering insights into non-traditional roles. This expands possibility without requiring immediate physical placement. How many of you are in a more rural area where this is a challenge for you to have access to other individuals for your student to meet who are doing a varied number of jobs? This is a way you can open those geographic doors. Now, interviewing and workplace readiness. Interviewing is often treated as a one-time event, and we recognize that you need to practice so that one-time event is spotless, beautiful. So we know that readiness includes communication clarity, professional etiquette, workplace problem solving, understanding employer expectations, managing and responding to feedback. Well, the toolkit breaks this into manageable steps. It allows instruction to be incremental, not reactive. Now we know employment is not the finish line. We need sustained employment. And retention in that employment requires executive functioning, adaptability, communication skills, self-regulation, and workplace problem solving. Too often, our job planning focuses on job acquisition. not sustainability. So we do purposely have a section that reinforces that long-term thinking. That shift from getting a job to sustaining a career is critical. Beyond structured modules, there's also discussion-based tools so we can deepen the reflection. And the way we teach the skills matters just as much as the skills themselves. Now, I mentioned career conversations. Think for a moment about the last transition age student who maybe struggled with self-advocacy. What was the actual challenge? Type in the chat. Think about your last student. What was the challenge they had with self-advocacy? Think for a moment about your last transition age student who struggled with self-advocacy. It sounds like it was a hard one for everyone. Using more than one word to communicate their needs. Low self-esteem, many disappointments, expecting to be let down. Their confidence, ability to know who to ask for assistance and what their needs are. Allowing someone else to take charge of their personal needs. Okay. Explaining how he can do the assignment differently. Didn't understand what that was and thought they meant they would get everything they wanted. Okay. So many times the challenge really isn't knowledge. I'm hearing quite a bit of confidence in here. Hearing from adults who have already navigated those experiences can be incredibly powerful. One way to make these abstract skills concrete is through some type of structured discussion. And my suggestion is using these short video segments. Career Conversations works best as a teaching prompt, not just a video to watch. The short clips allow students to see real professionals who are blind who discuss their strengths, their workplace challenges, the accommodations they're using, and the problem solving they sometimes need to get to do the job they wanted to do. In practice, I recommend set a clear purpose before playing the clip. Show a short segment. I wouldn't necessarily show the whole video. And then ask 2 or 3 focused questions, ending with a one-step application. So for example, what strength did you hear Joe say? Or how did they handle that workplace challenge? Or what would you borrow for your own plan that Joe had? Used this way, Career Conversations turns career readiness into a structured discussion, not just inspiration. And the key isn't to add more content, it's to use these tools intentionally. So my goal is to help you work on those pieces of confidence and integrate it into your workload as opposed to adding it to your workload. And I mean it. One of the biggest concerns I've heard professionals say is, I don't need one more thing. Integration should not mean expansion of your workload. Instead, let's think of it in terms of reinforcement. So send the Job Seekers Toolkit module between sessions that you're working on, or send the Family Connect link before an IFSP meeting. Use a Career Conversations video to open a discussion with your student or maybe with their parent. You can refer families to Vision Aware on adjustment topics you might have just introduced. The goal isn't more instruction, it's to extend your instruction beyond the limited contact time you have. If it adds to your workload, it's being used incorrectly because the goal isn't more content. Really, I'm hoping that your parents, families, and students get fewer dead ends because we want to make sure our families, even you, spend less time searching and more time acting. And if the resource creates more confusion, we failed and we want to know that. We would also love to know if it helps someone confidently take the next step, because that lets us know we've succeeded. My goal isn't to give you one more thing, it's to help families and individuals make progress between the moments they have access to you and other professionals to help them succeed. So let's test this. Where would you find an article or resource from Connect Center for a parent who just received a diagnosis and wants to understand IFSPs? Would it be Family Connect, Vision Aware, Career Connect, Braillebook? Type it in the chat. Where would you find a resource for a parent who just received a diagnosis and wants to understand IFSPs? Okay, CNFC and Family Connect. Good job. Okay, we're going to test it again. A sibling of your student is curious about Braille. Where would you send them? A sibling of your student is curious about Braille. Okay, Braille bug, we got it. Okay. A 62-year-old recently lost vision and wants to learn how to continue cooking safely. Where would you send them? Ah, we got it. Lots of vision aware. Good job, guys. How about a student wants help preparing for their first job interview? Okay, you got it. You got a QR code to get you over there if you need it. Family understanding, Family Connect. Adult adjustment, Vision Aware. Transition, Career Connect, and Early Literacy Braille Bug. Now, if you needed deeper professional learning or structured training and support, does anyone know where that is? I'll tell you, I think of the color gold, and I think the butt of a bee. If you are a professional and you need professional training, hopefully you know the APH Hive is where you can get that. Now, the tools and support in Connect Center are not static. They are shaped by advisory input, professional feedback, field partnerships, as well as ongoing evaluation of what is actually being used. And we do not assume we know all that the field needs. We listen and we adjust. For professionals especially, your feedback on accessibility and applicability is essential. We are also paying closer attention to where people become stuck when users leave a page or search repeatedly for the same thing or struggle to find what they need. Those moments often reveal an unanswered decision. And those insights are helping shape where Connect Center goes next. So 5 years ago, I probably would have measured success by how much content APH produced for Connect Center. Today, I'm measuring success differently. Did the person find what they needed? Did they feel more competent? Did they take a meaningful next step? That is the future direction of Connect Center. The Connect Center is changing. It's not there yet. It's where I see it. Right now, I want you to think about one challenge in your current work. What decision is that student or family or adult actually trying to make? What support would help them move forward? That's increasingly how we're thinking about Connect Center, not by the categories, but by helping people navigate important decisions across their lifespan. Our old model was someone would search and then browse and then read. Our new model is question, decision, action. Historically, many websites assume people already knew what they were looking for, but it's rarely true. Most people arrive with uncertainty. They have a question, a concern, or a decision to make. So rather than expecting our users to navigate hundreds of resources, we're increasingly designing pathways that help guide them toward action. And that shift from content navigation to decision support is one of the most significant changes happening across Connect Center today. I look forward to all of you feeling confident to tell us, what decisions have we not answered or are you not finding resources for? Now, I mentioned a moment the Hive. That APH Hive does fit in this ecosystem. Connect Center focuses on curated information, reinforcement tools, lifespan navigation. The APH Hive focuses on professional learning, structured instructional models, and skill development pathways. If you, as a professional, are looking for that deeper instructional design, PD, the Hive complements this. That's what it provides you. Connect Center, I would not expect to answer your questions as a professional. It's going to seem like, well, of course I know that. That's because it wasn't built for you. It was built all for the individuals who don't have your career path. And so if you're looking for deeper knowledge, you can go to the APH Hive and get that deeper knowledge. So while there's great content and information on Connect Center, much of it is going to seem for our decade-long professional like, well, yeah, I already knew that. So I just want you to realize that um, you have a place. The APH Hive is for you if you need more professional development. So looking ahead, our priorities include building decision-based pathways across the lifespan to make it easier for families and professionals to find answers to those common questions. We want to reduce the information overload and strengthen the action-oriented responses so that the learning can continue for the individuals who arrive there. We don't want to expand it just for expansion's sake because we really want to help people make those decisions, and we definitely welcome partnership in shaping that relevance. So I have a question for you. Where does this align with your work? We've talked about a lot of information across the lifespan, but I really truly want to hear from you. Where do you see what I've talked about aligning with your work? One comment, resources for families, browse by age, need an adult aging pop section that navigates to vision aware. Okay. This aligns with patient education for my older adults. The career advice and role models align with your work. It aligns with transition planning. More printables for non-tech users. Yep, you can definitely print them out. Our agency is active in employment, so Career Connect is a great resource. Families getting information on support groups. Provides a pathway for guidance across the lifespan. resources for me to use throughout the span of consumers I work with and their needs, a nice go-to for assistance, collaboration with school teams, great resource for families of older adults learning to live with vision loss, video or podcast type versions of materials for families and clients. I found a new transportation resource that is free for eye appointments by exploring. See alignment with sudden vision loss and transition planning for career support connecting education with VR. I'm interested in the Job Seekers Toolkit. Okay, I'm going to ask the next question. Where are there gaps? You came here hopefully to learn something new. Was there something that you didn't hear that you believe is a gap? What other resource or support might you have been looking for? Where is there a gap? What do we not cover, not talk about? What else do you need? I work with many families who don't speak English. What language do they speak? Or is it a free-for-all? Spanish, okay? Anyone else see any gaps? Technology decision Sorry about that. Technology decision tool for aging population. Simple language, explore technology to stay connected with vision loss. Okay, look for those. I need to experiment with the accessibility of the sites that parents and learners can navigate. Okay. It is accessible. I will be interested to hear if it's useful. Accessible and useful are two different things. And with that being said, what would increase usefulness in your setting? What are you looking for? Some of you might have never been on the site or have only barely touched it. What you might be saying is useful might be there and you just don't know yet, or you couldn't find it. What would increase usefulness in your setting? How can we make sure Connect Center is supporting your families, students, and clients? What would you like to see there? Sign language translation of materials. Interesting. Okay. What would make your job easier to give? Do we have an app where these areas are accessible? No more than opening it on a browser, but that doesn't mean we can't look into it. Short video clips or audio clips. Do you have a topic for those short video clips or audio clips you're interested in? Or all of them? About technology use for short video clips or audio clips. Okay. A short video clip on sighted guide. Okay. I have been able to gain quite a bit of information for you. Do you have any questions for me? My goal was to provide you the resource of Connect Center for you. So I want to help you support your folks from diagnosis all the way to employment, whether they're blind, low vision, deaf blind. and Connect Center is here for you. If you have some ideas of what you would like to see at Connect Center, you can actually write to us at connectcenter@aph.org. This is a resource for you to use with your families, with your students, with your clients, as well as to share if you're doing a professional development for somebody who knows nothing about vision loss. These are resources for you. Again, this is meant for the individuals you work with, not necessarily for you. You probably know this information, but it allows you to share this information with others. And Amy, I'll let you close us out.
Thank you, Leanne. That was amazingly informative to me. And so, and I get to work next beside you every day. So I really enjoyed this. Thank you to all of you who were with us today throughout your listening experience, where you were able to gain access to resources as well. And I'm going to pause this.